Thank you for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. This is Real Sports Talk for the Real Sports fan. And I definitely appreciate all you Real Sports fans who are listening right now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do me a huge favor and leave this podcast a 5-star rating at 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel that 5-star rating review will definitely be appreciated. If you're listening on any other platform, that could be iHeartRadio, Podomatic, Google Podcasts, wherever. Please share the podcast from that platform so that your friends and family can see the podcast. They can listen to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and then start this process all over again because I'm trying to get this podcast to the highest levels of podcastivity. And I need your help to get there. And I would truly, truly appreciate it. Now, it's been a little while since I did the podcast, over a week, and I definitely missed you guys. And I wanted to come back with a big episode. So I brought in a big time guest for this episode, the most famous Giants fan that I know. She is somebody who is blowing up in the podcast game. And in real life, she's a big sister to me. But in the podcast world, I consider myself a big brother to her because I've been doing it for a little bit longer. And I'm a proud big brother because she has exploded and now is a part of the Giants guys, has her own show, Rush Hour, and of course does a 3rd and 3 podcast along with me and Jason Fearman. She is one of the most fierce people you're going to see in the podcast world, known for her just crazy rants and, of course, her football knowledge. And I also think that she should do a reality TV podcast. I think that would be pretty dope if she did that as well. My big guest today is Nikki Jess. What's going on, Nikki?
Hi, that is quite the intro. Had a lot of intros on guest spots over the years, and that's probably one of my favorites.
Well, I'm glad. I put a little work into the intro. I always want to make the guests feel welcome. And one of my, well, not one of the only New Year's resolution that I had this year. I don't normally do them because,
Yeah.
let's be honest, we don't stick to them.
No.
But the New Year's resolution I wanted to do this year is to have more guests on the podcast. And you're my first guest in 2023 as I'm starting the process of trying to reach out to
Ooh.
more people and have guests on the show. And I just mentioned all the reasons I wanted to have you on. And one of the things I wanted to do when I have guests on now is ask them, when did they fall in love with sports, right? And I got this idea for this question from a movie. Now, I know you probably haven't seen this movie. Nikki is Nikki is
What movie is it?
so this movie is called Brown Sugar that I got the idea from. Now, Brown Sugar came out in the early 2000s, so it's an older movie. And it has Taye Diggs, Sanaa Lathan, Boris Kojo, Nakora Ari Parker, Queen Latifah's in it. It's a really good cast, good movie. And in the movie, Sanaa Lathan, she plays a music journalist. And one of the questions that she always asks to start her interviews is, when did you fall in love with hip hop? And I was like, I should do that with sports. And since the movie's more than 20 years old, I figured I can steal that from them at this point. So, so my first question to you to start the podcast is, when did you fall in love with sports?
When I was a kid, I mean, I would just watch football with my dad and just remember sitting on the couch and just asking him a million questions, and he would, teach me about the game. And then, as I kind of got into a little bit older, I was really getting into basketball. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. I mean, my dad and I would sit there and watch Bulls games. I should have stuck with it because somehow I ended up a Knicks fan after that. And resign myself to a life of not great basketball play. But yeah, it was ever since I was a kid. And, I kind of attribute that to my parents. I mean, they kind of right away just stuck me in dance and cheerleading. And I was in the competitive world since, gosh, I was a kid, and then went on to teach dance and coach cheerleading. So I think sports has always just kind of been a passion of mine. It's funny, I remember cheering, right? And there was just this joke. And if you look at my yearbook pictures, there's every picture of me is like on the sidelines, but my head is always turned because I'm watching the game, whether it was basketball or football, because how embarrassing this would be that, sometimes I wasn't captain yet, it was usually your senior year, but they would call the wrong cheer. Like they didn't understand offense and defense, right? So I'd have to say, like, no, that's not right. Like, it's third down or whatever it is. So I think all of that together just kind of added up to where I am now. But yeah, shout out to dad who just, kind of taught me along the way. And, one of our biggest fans on our show. So
Yeah.
yeah, your parents really like guide you and shape you. And I just took to sports and I ran a little bit of track. And then I remember my senior year in high school, it was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, there's no more cheer, there's no day, everything kind of starts coming to an end, right? And you have to like fill that void. So I was like, I'm gonna play softball. Now, I had no business like attempting to play softball. It is not my thing. But I was just like grasping at straws at that point. So it didn't go well, but they embraced me. We had a good time. But it was not my strong suit. So tempted, but I think just my love of sports has just kind of always been there.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. So I have three sports that I love. I love football, but basketball and boxing were my first two loves. And I truly don't remember a time where I didn't love basketball, right? Where
Mhm.
I can't point to a time where it's like this is the moment, because I feel like my mom was probably watching a lot of basketball when she was pregnant with me. And I just
Maybe.
came and I just came out the womb loving basketball because my mom had
Right.
videos of me literally at like 1 year old or like 18 months trying to put a basketball in the hoop. So I've literally like loved basketball my entire life. Boxing, I remember the specific moment. I was watching the first Tyson Holyfield fight,
Mm.
and my step pops had a fight party, and all these people came to the house, and it was people from all different cultures and races. We had white, black, we had Mexican people, Asian people. Everybody in the house came together to watch this big moment, this epic fight that was about to happen. And I remember thinking, oh, this is super cool. I was only like 5 or 6 at the time, but I remember just thinking how cool this is and how everybody was so into the fight. And it's like, oh, this is super dope. And from that moment on, I loved boxing. And with
Yeah.
football, it's kind of a gradual thing that happened, right? Growing up, the Saints weren't really that good when I was growing up, but just watching the games, and my dad, he was a really good athlete, played football in college, and he would, talk over stuff with me and teach me what was going on. And my grandpa also was a really good athlete, so they would go over stuff with me and watching. And then once the Saints became decent, I remember that playoff run. We finally won a playoff game in 2000 with Aaron Brooks and Ricky Williams
Hmm.
and company. And that was the one where I fell in love with it, like seeing the joy of the people in New Orleans finally having a winning team and those things. And it was like, wow, this is super dope. So for mine, I have three separate moments, but basketball, I really can't remember a moment where I didn't love basketball, because it seems
Yeah.
like I've loved it forever. So it's something that I'm always interested in, is see people's background and
Yeah.
how they fell in love with sports. So it's something that I'm going to do going forward, is asking
I
people
like
how they fell in love with sports. So now let's get into the show. This episode, we're going to do an NFC East review. We're going to go over each team, give our
hmm
grades for what they did during the season, talk about a
hmm
little bit what they should do in the off season, and also, of course, dig into your Giants, as I know that's the team that you love, and I know sometimes hate at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
For sure. And then we're going to end the show. I mentioned earlier that I think you should do a reality TV podcast. So I'm going to take advantage of some of your reality TV knowledge, and we're going to talk about Love is Blind 3
Yes.
at the end of the show. So let's start with the NFC East. We're going to go from bottom to top. So that means we're going to start with the Washington Commanders,
Uh-huh.
who ended last season at 8-1. They were 24th in offense, averaging just under 19 points per game, 7th in defense, only giving up 20.2 points per game. At quarterback, they had kind of a carousel going on. They started off with Carson Wentz, then went to my man Taylor
Yeah.
Heineke, went back to Carson Wentz for reasons that we still don't know.
Stupidly.
Yes. And then ended the season with the rookie Sam Howell, who had a decent performance in the last game of the year. Their leading rusher was Brian Robinson Jr. Great story, that the fact that he came back from being shot, his car being stolen, shot 5 times, and was able to come back and be the leading rusher for the Commanders, is an amazing story. And of course, their leading receiver was Terry McLaurin, who had just under 1,200 yards receiving this year. On defense, their leading tackler was Jamin Davis, who had 104 tackles. Their leading sack getter was Devon Payne. And their best guy in the secondary was Kendall Fuller, who had 13 passes defended and 3 interceptions. And also another person in there that was big for their secondary was Derek Forrest, who had 9 passes defended with 4 interceptions. So looking back at this year for the Commanders on a scale from F to A plus, what
Mm.
grade would you give the Commanders?
Hmm. Like a D minus, a C. somewhere in there. It's again, I think that they have some really talented guys on offense. They have talented wide receivers. They have a very talented defense. And I just think that this team consistently like underperforms for what that roster looks like. And the fact that they cannot sort out this quarterback situation again, here we go, another year, and we still can't figure it out. They're just like, it's just a mess of an organization all the time. They're always just making the wrong decision. They can't seem to get it right. They can never really put it together. So it's another disappointing year. I just think that their talent is so much better than what they actually give us every single year. And this was just another example of a disappointing year. I don't know why they went back to Carson Wentz. I mean, I just thought that was so stupid at that point. And listen, I'm not really a Wentz fan either. We make fun of it all the time. He's fine, and then he will just malfunction like at the worst possible time. So yeah, I just think for underachieving for what they have, I would have to go somewhere like a D minus, very low C, maybe.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I went C minus because they did have a chance to make the playoffs. They were in a point where they controlled their own destiny, and that's why they made the decision to go back to Carson Wentz when it seemed like Taylor Heineke was the guy that the team was behind. Now, Carson Wentz is more naturally talented than Taylor Heineke. There's a reason why Carson Wentz was the second overall pick in the draft and had the year where he almost won MVP, where the Eagles went on to win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, of course. So we know the talent's there for Carson Wentz. But like you said, we made the analogy on 3rd and 3 where I said that he's like a toy when you take the batteries out, it just starts to malfunction. And you're just like, why does these moments happen with Carson Wentz? You just don't know. But they did address some offensive issues by hiring Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator. So from Eric Bieniemy's standpoint first, if you're Eric Bieniemy, do you step away from your cushy job as offense coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, where you have, maybe the greatest quarterback to ever live in Patrick Mahomes? You're under Andy Reid, who's one of the greatest coaches of all time. You have Travis Kelce, who's probably a top 5 tight end ever. Great offensive line. You just won a Super Bowl. Do you step away from that cushy job to take this Washington Commanders job to prove yourself? Or do you stay there, right? It's a tough decision because he wants to be a head coach, obviously. And maybe he believes that he has to prove himself outside of the cushy situation of Kansas City. So from his standpoint, do you think he made the right decision going to Washington?
Probably if it's in the sense that you just described, that he feels like he needs to prove himself. Now, the flip side to that is like, one, if that was me, like I'm a pretty driven person, but like I like cushy too. Like I think I'm just cool like with where I'm at. However, I think we can all relate to sometimes you're in a career or a job for a really long time, and maybe you just feel like you need to challenge yourself. Maybe you just feel like you're not challenged anymore. And that happens to us regular people. And we're not coaches, but we all just have, moments in life where we're like, you know what, it's just like it's not it for me anymore. Maybe I just need a change of scenery. And in a way, you challenge yourself. So I could see that. Maybe that's how he felt. I personally wouldn't have done it, but then it's like, okay, does he need to take that job to prove himself? But then you look at this guy's had many, many, many interviews for head coaching jobs, and we don't know what goes on in those interviews. But I don't know. Is something not clicking? Do they not like his philosophy? Maybe the feedback was to expand a little bit. I'm not sure. So I guess there's some level where he felt like he needed to do it. And I assume he knows what's best for him and his family. But just think that. No, there's so many interviews. He's had how many? 9?
Yeah, he's had a lot of interviews, and you wonder. So me and Jay talked about it a little bit last week.
Yeah.
And at this point, at first you're like, of course, there's a stigma when it comes to NFL about Black coaches not getting opportunities. You're like, is that the thing? But we've seen other coaches get hired, right? This past cycle, D'Amico Ryans got hired for the Houston Texans. So you're like, even though the opportunities are slim, they're there for Black coaches. And with his resume, even if it's slim, you would think that he would get one of those slim opportunities with his resume that he has.
Yes.
So now you're wondering what's actually happening. And one thing I was thinking was maybe he just happens to have some bad luck where he's doing good interviews, but the person he's going against is great, right? So like maybe he's Charles Barkley and those guys going in are Michael Jordan, right? And Charles Barkley's amazing, but he didn't win a championship because of Michael Jordan. So maybe you're having those type of instances that happen when he goes in. And also, he is in the shadow of Andy Reid. Now, the players and Andy Reid have given him credit for installing plays in the offense, for calling plays at certain times, but we don't know exactly how much of it goes to him, right? There's no
Right.
way, unless they would come out and give us a detailed report, which they don't have to, but if the Chiefs came out and said, oh, 60% of the offense is Eric Bieniemy, then we would know, like, oh, okay, that's a large percentage. He deserves a lot of credit. Maybe he should get this head coaching opportunity. And the fact that he's had so many interviewing opportunities, you would figure that he would be good at this point. Even if, like, so let's say the first one was terrible, right? The
Yeah.
first one was horrible. And but you learn from that and you're like, okay, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. But the thing is, it's hard to do that with interviews because going from a regular life standpoint, when you do an interview, and you might not have experienced this, you probably get all the jobs that you interview for, but I've had, but for
Oh,
me, I've had, a lot of times where I've interviewed for jobs and then you get an email, sorry, we're going in a different direction, but you don't get the exact reason why you
yeah.
didn't get the job. So you don't
Right.
know what you did wrong or if you did something wrong at all, right?
Right.
And I think that's something that should change, not just in NFL, but in life, where they should tell you, okay, well, the reason you didn't get this job is because this person that got the job had this qualification. It was nothing that you did. You just happened to didn't have this qualification. Like this person spoke 3 languages or something. You're like, okay, I can't
Yeah.
compete with that. That's fine.
Yeah. No.
I get it. But if you have something where like, well, during your interview, you said this, and this is what kind of tip us to like, this job might not be for you. Going forward, like, oh, okay, I can correct that. And I think that's something that should change going forward, not just for the NFL, but in life in general. So you know what to improve upon going forward when you're trying to get these jobs. But one thing that you did touch on is being in a cushy situation. I think being in a cushy situation is underrated. We all love
Mhm.
ambition. We love people that go after it, the go-getters. We love that.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
sometimes it is nice to be in a situation where you're just in a good situation. Your
Just
offensive
cooling and chilling
coordinator,
out, right? Making your
yeah,
money and like, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
your offensive coordinator for a team that's made it to 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, two-time Super Bowl champion. You have maybe the greatest talent we've ever seen at quarterback locked in for the next 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, top 5 tight end of all time, great offensive line right now. And we don't know when Andy Reid's going to retire, but he can't coach forever. So maybe you get that chance to step in when he's gone, but that could be another 5 or 6 years. So there's a long
Yeah.
time. I get that. But sometimes we need to recognize that the people that we look at that we admire for being so ambitious, a lot of times they're not happy, right? A lot of times those
Right.
guys, because guys and girls, because they're so focused on what's next, they don't appreciate what's now, right?
Yeah.
You look at some of the greatest of all time, like we've talked about, like Michael Jordan at times just wasn't happy because he was so focused on being great and so focused on what's next. And once you become the greatest at something, what's next? What do you do
Yeah.
after you're the greatest basketball
What do
player of
you
all
do?
time? Yeah,
Yeah.
like with Tom Brady, what do you do? What do you do now?
Go
Like
to the boot. Take Greg Olson's job, apparently, is what you do. So
that's nuts. That's nuts that the fact that Greg Olson has to take like a $7 million pay cut.
yeah.
That's crazy. And Greg Olson's really good. He's probably, and the thing
He
is,
is
Greg
good.
Olson's probably gonna be better than Tom Brady at this job, right?
Mhm.
But Tom Brady
Yeah.
has the bigger name. It's going to be something. And also when it comes to, let's quick tangent, and that's something that does happens on this show. We go off,
Yeah.
off the rails. So when you watch a football game, do you even think about the commentators?
Uh, not really. Unless it's like Chris Collinsworth, right? And I'm like, I hate
Yeah.
this guy. I'm so sick of listening to him. But not really, unless there's something like egregious, because you know what it is. Obviously, like our local teams, we have like our announcers, and depending on what channel it is and where that all factors into it. But I don't really think about it. There's times where like I think Romo's entertaining, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's calling this game or whatever. I think Greg Olson's really good.
Yeah.
I love the Manning cast because it feels very podcast like and they don't take themselves too seriously, but generally not,
Yeah.
just kind of tune it out a little bit.
No, that's like for the most part, for most fans, you're not doing that. Now with football, it is more important to have good commentators than other sports because with football, there's so much going on and you do
Yeah,
need things explained to you. And there's the way the camera's set up, you can't really see everything. So
right.
unless
We
they
can't.
show the wide angle on replays and then you can see everything. But unless you have the all 22 film, you're not going to be
Yeah.
able to see everything that's going on. So you do need good commentators. The only time you notice is when they're bad, right? Like Jason Witten was really
Yes.
bad. So you noticed it was like, oh, this guy's not good at this. So
So
it was like,
bad.
okay, it stands out. But if they're decent to good, the only time you'll notice, which isn't fair to them, is if it's really bad or if it's really, really good. So
Yeah.
like when Tony Romo first came, it was like, oh wow, he's predicting plays, he's giving
Yeah.
all this insight. It's like, okay, this is great. Greg Olsen is like, okay, Greg Olsen is really good at this. We noticed that he's really good. And with Tom Brady, it's going to be such a just expectation is going to be so high for him.
Yeah.
Like he's going to have to kill it right out the gate. There's not going to be a period where they're like, okay, he's getting used to it. No, he's getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. So he's got to be good right away, which I don't know if he's going to be a good commentator. I think he'll be a good analyst, like somebody who's in studio, can break down a play from a quarterback perspective and say everything that the quarterback is seeing. He'll be amazing at that because he's seen literally everything in the NFL. But the fact that they're getting paid this much money, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I especially don't get, and I don't want to hate on anybody. I don't want anybody to lose money like Greg Olsen's losing money. I want people to get paid because we're in this business as well and we want to get paid. But if you're giving commentators hundreds of millions of dollars, some of that money could come down and trickle down to the podcasters like me and you as well.
I know. It's funny. And I'm surprised that some of these bigger companies, like, and I get it. No, none of us can compete with, the name of Tom Brady. But, I think the one thing you can say about podcasters, especially in sports, right, is we have very, very niche audiences. You know what I mean? So it's like, if, why wouldn't you want like that podcaster or that influencer for that team? Like you have the grip of the audience. I'm surprised that like the big corporations and the podcasters have not found a way to work together yet, right? Because if you want to reach Saints fans or you want to reach Giants fans, well, guess what? There's really only a handful of people that you're going to actually go to who are going to have an impact on that audience. So it's just kind of something that I was thinking about a couple weeks ago, not to derail like we normally do, but I'm kind of like, and you know what? It started me thinking because, when you post something on Facebook, right, it's a highlight or something that you didn't specifically have. Maybe we got it from CBS or something, whatever, or a music or something. And right away you're flagged and your shit gets taken down. And I'm like, God, why haven't we found a way to like work with each other here? You know what I mean? Let the podcasters, and maybe there's rules in place. You have to have had X amount of shows. You have to have X amount of followers and you can have access to certain things. So I'm hoping in a few years that like the niche podcasters, the influencers, maybe some of these big corporations can find a way to work together because it's a little silly to me that you wouldn't capitalize on the podcasters that have the ear of the audience.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. With me, it happens all the time with like boxing videos, right? And boxing, like it's a niche audience, especially here in the United States. So boxing should want all of us who love boxing to share these videos, to have our comments. So what I've had to do is, I had to do one yesterday. I did a video about a boxing match that happened. I had to record it myself. Instead of taking the video from that boxing page, or whatever, I had to record it from the TV so they can't take it down and say it's their video and put it in, which of course is not as good coming from my cell phone as it would be coming from them. But to make sure it didn't get taken down or didn't get flagged, I had to do that, right? And boxing, that's a whole nother story about how greedy everybody is in boxing, but it's, it's something that happens with all sports. And I think that's a very good point that they should work together with even the smallest of podcasters and content creators, because all we're doing is enhancing the sport, enhancing whatever product we're pushing at that time. So it shouldn't be something that should be this fight to try to stop us from using it. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I know. It's like, how is that not free advertisement for you if I'm using a clip from Fox, even though I may have edited it or whatever I did to it, but like obviously we know that I wasn't there like taking it's just more advertisement. So it's crazy to me we all haven't found a way to to work together, because I feel like that they should be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and speaking of working together, how do you think that the Washington Commanders should try to work together to enhance their team in the offseason? Very professional setup right there. Professional segue.
Very professional. I tell people I learn from the best. I learn from the best. Yes.
But so some of their key free agents in the offseason, Deron Payne, who I mentioned earlier, was their leading sack getter with 11 and a half sacks this year. According to Spot Tracker, which I've used to get the free agent information, he's going to be in a range of like 19.4 million for as far as his contract. You have Wes Swetzler, I always mess up his name. He's the offensive lineman for them, who's very good. Trey Turner, Cam Sims, Taylor Heineke is also a free agent. So for them, first let's start with the quarterback. Do you re-sign Taylor Heineke even if you're looking to maybe go in a different direction, quarterback wise?
Yeah, I do because you haven't had great luck with the quarterback situation.
Yeah,
And I know everybody's like, "Oh, Derek Carr to well." They want Derek Carr everywhere, right? He's going
yeah,
anywhere in the NFC South. He's going to the Jets. He's going to Washington. He's in the event you don't get him, and you need to figure something out. I think Heineke, like he that locker room respects him, obviously. And when he's on the field, like they have chemistry. So even as an insurance backup plan, like I'm not saying he's taking you to the promised land, but to have somebody that does already have respect and leadership in the locker room, I think that's an important point that a lot of people forget. And no, you shouldn't like necessarily overpay for it. And that can't be the only factor, but I think it is something that needs to be considered. So I'd resign him just as an insurance policy because as we've seen, right? Didn't we all learn this season how important it is
yeah.
to have backup quarterbacks, have more than one? Like I think we've all learned that lesson.
For sure. You definitely should always have three quarterbacks on your roster.
Yes.
San Francisco, that should be the 49er rule. It should be called
Yeah.
that from now on. You should always have three
Got the tough
quarterbacks.
rule, we get the 49er rule now.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have three quarterbacks on your roster. So I agree with that. I think T. Henny should stay on the team, even in the backup role.
Yeah.
And even if you draft a quarterback, which they have 8 picks in this upcoming draft, including a 16th overall pick in the first round. So let's say they use that on the quarterback. But if you're picking in the middle of the first round, that quarterback may not be ready to start right away. So if
Right.
you have somebody like T. Henny there, now you know, okay, we have a seasoned quarterback who can win games for us. And if this guy comes in and after like week 5 or 6, we know he's ready, we know we have a professional for those first 5 or 6 games
Yeah.
to stay there and be ready. So when it comes to their picks, though, 8 picks in the draft, 16th overall pick in the first round, what direction do you think they should go in the draft? Should they look for a quarterback right away? Should they try to enhance the offense, enhance the defense? What do you think they should do?
Yeah, they have got to address the quarterback situation. That's where it's at for me. Like I said, short of getting like Derek Carr or anybody else. I mean, but either way, this franchise has to find their quarterback of the future. Either way you look at it, right? Because it's they're gonna have to figure it out. It doesn't matter, Derek Carr's not gonna be around forever, and you might not even get him. So you're gonna have to figure this out at some point. It just you got talent. You have like amazing talent at wide receiver. You got a really good defense. You've got to put it together at the quarterback position. So they've got to figure that out.
Yeah, I think, like you said, great talent at wide receiver. We saw that McLaurin really connected more with Heineke than he did with
Yeah,
Wentz. I think with Wentz, he's still an NFL quarterback, but not a starter.
yeah,
So I wonder what team's going to take him on as a backup. But he has gotten to the point now where I don't think he'll be a distraction. It's not going to be a thing where people are going to be clamoring for Carson Wentz to come in. So I think he'll be fine as a backup somewhere. And whatever team takes him on, I just don't think it'll be Washington where he can stay and be a backup. I think it'll have to be somewhere else for that. But with Washington, we both agree C minus, D plus, somewhere in that area for their grade this year. And we
yeah,
agree that they should try to get a quarterback, either if it is somebody in free agency like a Derek Carr, or maybe they should look in the draft, unless Sam Howell's that guy. But we don't know how he
yeah,
looked in practice. We know he had one decent game, but it takes more than one decent game to show that you're starting in the NFL. So it's going to be a very
yeah,
interesting offseason for the Commanders, but that offense is definitely going to be more creative and better. It's going to be very interesting to see what Eric Bieniemy does there, and if he can be as creative when you don't have a magic man at quarterback. Can you be as creative with
yeah,
offensive play calling? So it's going to be very,
yeah.
very interesting to see what the Commanders do in the offseason going into next year. So now
Oh God.
we got to get to your New York Giants, who finished last season at 9-7, lost in the divisional round to the Eagles, but good run. Definitely nothing to be ashamed of there. They were 15th in offense, averaging 21.5 points per game, 17th in defense, averaging 21.8 points per game. Daniel Jones had a very good season, 3,205 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions to go along with 708 yards rushing for Daniel Jones this year. Saquon Barkley reminded us of why he is the monster that was drafted second overall out of college. Had over 1,300 yards rushing and over 300 yards receiving. Their top receiving guy was Slayton with 724 yards. So obviously that looks like an area where you want to enhance that. On
Yeah.
on defense, their leading sack getter was Dexter Lawrence with 7.5 sacks. Leading tackler was Julian Love from the safety position, which is a little different. Your safety being your
Yeah.
leading guy in tackles
Yeah.
with 124 tackles. And another guy in the secondary who's big for them was Fabian Monroe with 10 passes defended. And Love also led you guys in interceptions with only 2 interceptions
Yeah.
this year. So turnovers and receiving yards seems like a thing that you guys want to look at this year. So looking back at the season, Grail,
Mhm.
on a scale from F to A plus, what grade would you give the Giants?
Now I'm gonna give him a solid B. I'm not gonna, go and say it was an A of a season because it wasn't. It was it exceeded so many people's expectations. And remember we did our prediction show. I said, like if they win 9 games, Brian Daboll should be coach of the year. That means from the franchise that was winning 3 games, 4 games, 6, 4, like that's a complete turnaround. And I think the Giants this year truly are an example of just how much good coaching can affect your team. You know what I mean? So I think that they had a solid B season. I don't think many people expected them to have the season that they did. I don't think many of them expected them to go to the playoffs, win a playoff game. I in no way, shape, or form expected to win against the Eagles. The talent gap is just glaring that we were just overmatched. And I didn't expect to win, not in Philly, not even if it was at MetLife, I would have expected it. So I think all in all, if you look at this season, yeah, there's talent issues, and we'll get into it as we continue talking about them. But I think just overall, you have to give them a B for what they achieved with not having all that much to really work with.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I put B on my paper as well. Like what you guys were able to do. Like you said, the coaching effect, you really saw it. And a lot of
Yeah,
times we forget about coaching because we're watching the players. And in football, coaching matters so much. It matters
yeah,
so much because there's so many moving parts, right? From the offensive line, how their scheme is compared to the quarterback, what he sees, the wide receivers, the routes they run. Like every unit is coached as well. The wide receivers coach has to make sure he coaches wide receivers correctly on running the route and when to break out of their routes. The quarterback has to know when to throw the ball. The offensive line has to know how to block, when to run block, when to pass block, how to pull on certain plays. There's so much that goes on in football that coaching
yeah,
affects. And you saw the good effect of coaching with this team. And you saw the good effect of coaching on Daniel Jones.
yeah,
Now, Daniel Jones is a free agent, right?
yeah.
And I know you're going to be asked about this a million times in the
A,
offseason.
a million. Already it's been a million. If I had $1 for every time I got asked this question, because I know it's coming, either
Yes.
on a podcast, in a comment, in a DM, like you guys are DMing me, like I appreciate it. It's great, but I would be a very rich woman.
Yes, because and the thing is, you're going to be asked about it because we truly don't know
Yeah,
what his worth is, and that's the
right.
reason that we have to ask you that question. Because so, according to SpotTrack.com, they're portraying him at 26 million a year, right?
Mhm.
Which is
Mhm.
something that we've thrown around. I've thrown around that number like 25, 26 million a year. So 3 years, $78 million. They're trying to say that that's the contract that they should offer him. If the Giants offer him 3 years, 78 million, does Daniel Jones take that? Is the question.
I think, you know, so the whole Daniel Jones thing, right? It's like, do you slap the franchise tag on him and tell this kid, hey, you got to prove it one more year? My issue with that, and I know Joe Shane's going to have to get creative. My issue there is if you tell this kid, you got to show us again one more time. I don't know, mentally, are you just kind of like, well, listen, hey, F you. Like, I took you to the
Yeah.
playoffs, won a playoff game. I have no talent at wide receiver. That kind of, I don't know that he's going to roll with that. So, and I think the important thing to note is in any negotiation, both sides have like a walk away number, right? And anybody's age, Daniel Jones' agent, they're not going to be like, yeah, cool, 2-year deal. Like that's just
Yeah.
not happening at this point. So all of you who keep saying that, just understand that agents have a job to do as well, right? They have the best interests of their client at heart. And this is how negotiations go. Believe me, I do this every day for a living. Like it's just everybody has their best interest at heart. So, and both sides are going to have a walk away number. For me personally, I think probably the 35-40 range, right? Look at Ryan Tannehill. I think Daniel Jones is better than Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is, what's his average? 29.5 million a year. So if that's kind of the benchmark, because people like to compare the both of them, I think he's better. And I think what people need to realize is no matter what, the Giants are going to have to overpay for Daniel Jones. Why? Because this is where the quarterback market is. So get the steal now, because you know what? In 3 years, it's probably going to be 50 million. It's just going to be the norm, right? So do it now. I think 35-40 is probably fair. But I think that's your walk away number. I don't think you go over that. And for both sides, if they can do it. So yeah, I think, or restructure it, right? You could structure it in a way of like, maybe he's getting 20 the first year, and then maybe we start getting into the 30s and year 2 or 3, because you do need to get some things done. You still have to try to re-sign Saquon Barkley. You do need some help at wide receiver. So maybe you do that. They can get creative. I know there's not a ton to work with here, but yeah, I think that 35-40 is probably where it ends up. That's probably fair. And that's probably a fair walk away number for both sides.
Okay. Nah, I definitely can see that for sure. And you make a great point about how the quarterback market is always going up. It's
It
always going
is.
to enhance. So it's definitely better to sign your quarterback early than sign them late, which we'll definitely talk about when it comes to Jalen Hurts as well, when we talk
Yeah.
about the Philadelphia Eagles. And another free agent for you guys is Saquon Barkley.
Mhm.
Saquon Barkley, he's somebody who this year showed you why he is considered to be this phenomenal talent. And he was a big part of that offense as well. Had times during the year where it seemed like he was slowing down, where it seemed like the low was kind of getting to him. And he's somebody who wants a big time running back contract. He wants that Christian
Yeah.
McCaffrey type contract. Do you think that that's something that's possible for him to get with the Giants?
I don't know that they're going to pay that. I really don't. They might get close. I don't know. I don't know that he's going to get Christian McCaffrey money. And maybe that's his walkway number. So we know that during the bye week he turned down 12. So, and he did say, "Listen, I'm not trying to reset the market. I just want what I'm worth and my value." And I totally get that. I still mad he didn't win comeback player of the year because
Yeah, I thought
you
he
know
was going to win it too.
so I said this on Rush Hour. Like, what did Geno Smith come back from? The fucking bench? Like you were most improved, but you weren't like the comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
So, we have to change that too. Of all the things we're changing in the world of sports, we need a most improved player. I am nervous about the Saquon one, but I think that they will probably get close. But I don't think they're going to overpay for a running back. And as much as I love him, and as much as his leadership means something to that team in the locker room, I'm just not a fan of overpaying for running backs either.
Well, yeah, because it seems like you could find a good running back just walking down the street, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately for running backs, it seems like you can do that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can find good ones, but you can't find special ones. So that's the
Correct.
thing. So if you believe Saquon Barkley is special, he's on that Christian McCaffrey, Derrick
Yeah.
Henry, Alvin
Yeah.
Kamara prior to this year type level, then you have to pay him because you don't want to take that shot of saying, okay, we could find someone else to replace his production. Then it's not the same. So it's
Yeah.
definitely going to be interesting to see what they do there. And as far as other free agents, I wanted to leave this to you. Are there any other key free agents that you guys have to resign?
I would like Julian Love to get re-signed. It's listen, it's all gonna be tough. I think Kenny on there too. Yeah, it's unfortunately we're gonna have some key pieces that we're gonna lose them, which you can't resign everybody, right? Every team is
Yeah,
going to go through this. We're going to talk about the Eagles. I tweeted that list out yesterday. They're going to look
crazy list.
completely
Yeah,
different. Yeah, listen, it's hard. You have to get creative. I would love for Julian Love to be re-signed. I saw this morning it does came out of Giants camp, supposedly not expected to franchise tag him. Probably 5-6 million is where he should be, but I think he wants 8 or 9. So, it's just I'd love for that to get done. But my goal is within like hopefully the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. I feel like if they can get Daniel Jones wrapped up, then that will kind of dictate like where we can go from there. And everybody asked me, "Oh, do you think we'll give a hometown discount?" I, I don't know. Listen, Tom Brady always did that, right? His entire career. I know Eli Manning did it a couple times, but On the other hand, get your money, right? You don't know how long you're going to freaking play, so get your money. This is the quarterback market. And I don't know that I'm giving a hometown discount. But then again, you're like, well, like, can we get rid of Kenny Galladay, right? I think that would free up, what, 6 million, I think, 8, something like that. So you need a wide receiver. That's just plain and simple. You don't have a wide receiver. So it's tricky. I'm glad I'm not a NFL general manager or a capologist or anybody of that nature. But I think it's like, let's get Daniel Jones done. And then hopefully we can, everything will start rolling from there.
Yeah, for sure. You have to get quarterback done first, and then you
Yeah.
really sets up the rest of your off season. And speaking of the off season, one big part of the off season is the draft. You guys have 9 picks in this upcoming draft, starting with the 25th overall pick in the first round. So I would take a wild guess here. Are you going wide receiver first round?
I am going wide receiver. That is my main priority. And actually it's the position I am focusing on for the draft special. So yes, it's like I'm all in on wide receiver. I don't give a shit about anything else right now, but please, wide receiver would be great.
All right, so once you start doing your scouting and whatnot, definitely got to get you back on to
Yes.
talk about, your favorite college receivers going into this year's draft for sure. Because I'm not a big college football fan, so for me, it's a lot of cramming during this time of
Yeah.
the year where I'm cramming and YouTubing a lot of
Yes.
a lot of
Highlights like we all do. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So I'm definitely gonna be right there with you on that for sure. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what the Giants do this offseason. Hopefully, you guys can keep up the momentum and carry it into next year. So now let's talk about
let's just stop right here. So love is blind.
let's talk about one of your favorite subjects of all time, the Dallas Cowboys. They went 12-5 last season. They lost in the divisional round as well. They lost to San Francisco in the divisional round. They were 4th in offense this past season, averaging 27.5 points per game, 5th in defense, averaging 20.1 points per game given up this past season. Dak Prescott in 12 games threw for 2,860 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions, which led the NFL on 66% completion rate. Their leading rusher was Tony Pollard, not Zeke, with just over 1,000 yards. Zeke had 876 yards rushing this past season. A big question coming into the year is CeeDee Lamb. Can he handle the load of being a number 1 receiver? Seems like he did that pretty well.
I think he did okay.
Yeah, 107 receptions.
Yeah.
1,359 yards, 9 touchdowns. The key players on defense was Trayvon Diggs, who had 14 passes defended with 3 interceptions. He improved, even though he had a lot less interceptions than last year. He seemed to be more consistent this past season, not giving up as many big plays, not falling for as many double moves.
Yeah.
So that's a big plus for Dallas. Of course, their leading sack getter was Micah Parsons, who was the leader for Defensive Player of the Year for a lot of the season at 13.5 sacks. Their leading tackler was Donovan Wilson with 101 tackles. But to be fair to Leighton Vander Esch, he would have been the leading tackler if he played all the games. He had 90 tackles in 14 games played. So looking back at the Cowboys season, I know it's going to be tough for you, but you gotta give them a good grade here. On a scale from F to A plus, what grade would you give the Dallas Cowboys?
Give them a B plus. I think that they they had a good season, right? They did exactly what I expected them to do, right? Lose like they normally do. It's always a loss in some epic fashion, right? Like horrible clock management. We forget how to play football. We don't hand the football to the ref. Like it's always like 47 missed field goals. It's just always something, and it's quite entertaining for me. So I do enjoy it. And you saw on Twitter somebody said like, "What's your favorite sports pastime or whatever?" And I said, "Oh, watching the Cowboys lose in the postseason every year because." It's always something, dramatic and crazy. Like even just think about Romo, right? And the meme with and he's crying. And so, they're an entertaining franchise for us NFC East rivals. But I do think you do have to give credit where credit's due. I give them a good B plus on the season. I think they did exactly what everyone expected them to do. Rational fans and people did exactly what they expected them to do.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I gave them a B plus as well. When you look at how excellent they were on both sides of the ball for most of the year, you have to give them a B plus. And they lost to a better team right? It's not like they lost to a
Yeah.
team that they should have defeated in San Francisco. San Francisco was the better team, even though they could have done some things better, like you mentioned in that game, but they
Yeah.
lost to a better squad in San Francisco. So can't really hold that against them. So I agree with you on B plus. So now looking at their offseason, they do have some key free agents, including Dalton Schultz, their tight end, Leighton Vander Esch, who I mentioned, Anthony Brown, Cooper Rush, backup quarterback extraordinaire, is a free agent.
Yeah. Yes.
And Tony Pollard as well is a free agent this
Oh, I like
season.
that.
So if you're the Cowboys,
Yeah.
Tony Pollard, you just mentioned how you don't overpay for running backs. He's coming off of
Right.
a broken leg that he suffered in the San Francisco game. They say he should be back well before training camp and everything. No. Tony Pollard. So they're estimating around 9 mil a year is what he would be asking for. 9 mil a year. Are you giving that to Tony Pollard?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not. Maybe a little less, right? Again, like I think we're probably like maybe 6, right?
yeah.
7. I don't know, but not uh I don't know. Well, and so Zeke, right? Like, so don't they have to get him done or no? They got
So
him
Zeke
done?
is still under contract, but I'm pretty sure they're
Oh,
going to
still
restructure his
restructure.
deal.
That's what it
Yeah,
is.
they're going to
Okay.
restructure his deal because he wants to stay there and he's already made the big chunk of that contract.
Yeah.
So they're going to restructure his deal. And he's still, people have been really tough on him because he's no longer the phenom he was as a rookie, but he's still a
Yeah.
good back. So I think they
Yeah.
should hold on to him, but he's no longer, Tony Pollard's the better back. So if you
Yeah.
keep both of those guys, I think you have a really good 1-2 punch there.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, but is Zeke on the decline? And then you got to run Tony Pollard into the ground, right? Because then you're really, if you overpay for him and you run him into the ground and then he's got nothing left, then that was just a stupid investment. So this is exactly why, like we talk about, you just don't overpay for running backs, right? Like, God forbid this guy, gets hurt. You could say that for anybody, but especially they have a history of injury, but they could do it and, they want him there and both sides can come to an agreement, then do it. But I think they probably have to get him done. That's probably the top one that they need to figure out first.
Yeah, I think Schultz is a good tight end. I think they probably want to get him back. Leighton
Yeah.
Vander Esch, very good linebacker when healthy.
I
That's
hate
the thing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate him.
So that speaks to how good he is. The fact that you're a Giants fan and
Yeah.
you hate him speaks to how good he is. And the thing is, though, this year he played 14 games, which is on the high side for his career, which is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So with him, and I believe he is 29 years old, I believe. So if you get to a point now where he's getting to that point where he hasn't been healthy, getting into his 30s, do you re-sign Leighton Vander Esch or do you look for something different at linebacker?
I think you would probably start that process, right? Again, like if you can get him, re-sign him, yeah. But I think you need to probably start that process eventually. Yeah.
Okay, I'm right there with you on that one. Now, when it comes to the draft, they have 9 picks in this year's draft. First round, they picked 26 overall. So it's going to be Giants and then Cowboys
Yeah.
right there in the draft. What do you think they should be looking at in the first round?
Well, you know what? I would like to ask CD Lamb this because he said that in order for Dak to take the next step, that he needs more talent around him. Now, I personally think the Cowboys have quite a bit of talent on that roster. Also, we were told all summer, like, my God, we're stacked, right? The Cowboys are stacked. They're stacked. They're stacked. So actually, if you get CD Lamb on here and ask him where he thinks that they should go and get talent, because I would really like to. I would like to know personally. They should get a new coach. I think they should get a new head coach.
Well, the coach that you think should be gone is now having even more responsibility as he's going to be calling offensive plays, as Kellen Moore is now going to the LA Chargers. So this not only is he not going to be gone, he's going to be doing even more responsibility going into next year. And it's weird because when he was calling plays for the Packers, I never thought of the Packers as like this excellent offense. It was more about Aaron Rodgers and how excellent he was. It wasn't about like the play calling. Once Matt LaFleur came in, that's when he was like, oh, okay, we see this play calling that he's doing and how it affects a quarterback like Rodgers. He went on and win back-to-back MVPs once LaFleur came in. So the fact that your quarterback, the last year you were there, looked like he was on a decline, you got a new coach, and then he wins back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah.
Seems like a down sign for you to be calling plays. Just gonna throw that out there. But
I
so
don't know, but maybe Dallas could look for a new kicker. I think that's probably what it is.
that's a big thing. They could look for a new kicker. I don't know if there's any phenom kickers in this draft that
I
they'd
don't
be
know
looking
either,
for.
but
But they definitely could be looking for a kicker. They have 9 picks, so if they spent one on a kicker, wouldn't be a bad investment to spend a late round pick on a kicker for sure if they has one of those really good kickers out there. They could. CeeDee Lamb was the best receiver by far. So I can see
mhm.
why he's like, maybe I do need that second receiver. Like maybe he's jealous of the Eagles when he sees AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. He's like, man, that would be kind of cool to have 2 number 1s instead of
Yeah.
just me being a sole number 1. So I can see it from that standpoint. And maybe
Yeah.
they do find that guy in the draft. So we'll see going forward what the Cowboys do. So now let's talk about maybe your second favorite subject in
No. Torture, yes.
the Philadelphia Eagles, who went
Mm.
14-3 in the regular season, went on to make it to the Super Bowl, but lost in a very close game to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were third in offense, averaging 28.1 points per game, eighth in defense, only giving up 20.2 points per game. Jalen Hurts had a very good year. He threw for 3,701 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completing 66.5% of his passes. Also ran for 760 yards. Their leading rusher was Miles Sanders, who had over 1,200 yards rushing this past season with 11 touchdowns. AJ Brown had almost 1,500 yards receiving on 88 catches. So not only is he catching a lot of balls, but he's catching it down the field. And so
Yeah.
it's not just dink and dunk with him. And then you have Devonta Smith, who had almost 1,200 yards receiving on 95 catches with 7 touchdowns. And Dallas Goedert in only 12 games had over 700 yards receiving. So they're stacked as far as weapons
Yeah.
on their offense for sure. Defensively, it's even better with the
Yeah.
with the players they had. Hassan Reddick had 16 sacks.
Uh,
John Hargrave had 11 sacks. You had Sweat with 11 and Graham with 11 sacks. And Fletcher Cox, the old guy, with 7 as well. James Bradbury had 17 passes defended. I know that kind of hits you a little hard.
yeah, that hurts. Thank you. Thank you for this rundown. Appreciate it. Yes.
Hearing that James Bradbury number. Big play
Yeah.
Slay also had 14 passes defended. And CJ Gardner Johnson. So it's not just you that's going to be hurting in this one, me as well.
Yeah.
CJ Gardner Johnson
This
got,
guy.
got traded from the Saints and went over there and got 6 interceptions in only
Uh,
12 games played. So looking back at Philadelphia's season, what grade would you give them from F to A plus?
I mean, you got to give him an A. I'd give him an A plus if they won the Super Bowl, but you have to give him an A. As much
Yeah.
as I am the last person on the face of this earth that wants to do that. I think, coming into this season, I think a lot of us were like, it's between the Eagles and the Cowboys. We probably all picked the Eagles to win the division. So you picked them to go undefeated through like 9 weeks, I think, 10 weeks,
Yeah.
which you nailed that. So that was awesome. They just the talent they have on that team is ridiculous. And they really put it together this season. Jalen Hurts and Sirianni, and again, like we had said, there's something to continuity and coaching and kind of trying to keep that staff intact a little bit. Which now they look different because they've lost their OC or DC. They got
Yeah.
a shitload of free agents, so it's gonna be tough for them. But this season, I think like you have to give them an A for everything that they were able to do.
Yeah, I gave him an A plus, and spoiler alert, only 2 A pluses are going to be given out. So when I do
Oh,
when I do the AFC West, of course, the Chiefs are going to be the other A plus for
yeah,
making it to the Super Bowl as well. But when you look at this season, I gave them A plus because they were so dominant throughout the whole year. Super Bowl, they barely lost to the Magic Man himself in Mahomes. So I gave them an A plus, and they were just so good throughout the year. And one of the
yeah,
things that I was worried about because they were so good is how would they be able to manage when adversity came, right? And even
right,
though they did lose to the Chiefs, I felt like they handled adversity well, especially Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal in the Super Bowl. So when you look at it from that standpoint, it's an A plus. Now, can they continue to keep this A plus team together? That's going to be the big question. You mentioned the
yeah,
big list of free agents. Let's go over just a few. Fletcher Cox is a free agent. Javon Hargrave, Jason Kelsey is a free agent. Bradbury is a free agent. Isaac Samayu, if I'm saying that correctly, the guard, he's a free
hmm,
agent as well. Miles Sanders, CJ Gardner Johnson, their backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew. And this is just name a few. This isn't everybody.
yeah,
So when you look at that list and you hear that list, Do you think the Eagles can keep this team somewhat together?
Uh,
I know you're hoping
that's gonna be tough. Yeah, I hope they lose everybody. It's gonna be tough. I did read something yesterday where I forget where. I'll tweet it out. I'll try to find it again. It's something like 6 things they can do to free up like 33 million in cap space. Don't remember off the top of my head, but they're gonna have to get creative, just like everybody else is gonna have to, and kind of restructure some guys. But that's tough to keep. I think that you can keep everybody there and keep that team intact. You've lost like prominent people on your coaching staff. You don't have endless money. No team does. So you got to get something done with Jalen Hurts, right? He's going to want a payday, as he should. So no, I think the Eagles are going to look wildly different next year. Now, even if they look different, can you still coach them up and can they still be this A+ team? Yeah, I don't anticipate them taking like a major step back, but I think a mini step back. I'm going to take like a baby leap back a little bit. I don't know that we're going undefeated for 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. And, so they're going to look different. That's really tough to think that everybody can come back. So I don't think anyone should expect that.
So if you're looking at that list I just named off, just to remind you, Fletcher Cox, Hargrave, Kelsey, Bradbury, the guard, Semeyu, Miles Sanders, CJ Gardner-Johnson. If you had to pick like two, like we got to keep these guys, who are the two that you're saying these are two we have to keep?
Yeah, I think you want to try to keep CJ, obviously. I know Boston Scott's also a free agent, and Miles Sanders, so that's tough. I think this is hard for me because I want them all to go. Like, I don't want Boston Scott like ever again. Like Fletcher Cox, just get out of the NFC East. I'm sick of you. It's been a nightmare. Thanks. But no, I mean, those are your guys. Like, you want to try to be able to keep Sanders, Scott, one maybe at least. So yeah, I think that those are probably, your top priorities.
So we talked about it earlier. When it comes to running backs, it seems to be the position where you can lose guys and still be good. And they do
Yeah.
have a guy who emerged in Gainwell, who they
Yeah.
might like step up to a starting position. So I think I can see Miles Sanders being one of those casualties to go because
Yeah.
you want to hold on to those defensive linemen. Like you
Yeah.
have such a great defensive line, you want to keep that intact. So I can see like the offensive lineman being able to, like Jason Kelsey's older, so I can see them maybe letting go of Jason Kelsey
He
and
might retire
he,
anyway.
he
That's
might
what I meant to
retire
bring up.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's
if
a
he
lot of rumors that he's going to retire. So, I could see that.
Yeah, so if he's let go or retires, and I really can't see him playing outside of Philadelphia. So if he
No.
retires, then you also could say, okay, we'll hold on to our offensive line and defensive lineman while we let go of Miles Sanders, and we want to keep, of course, that secondary, which is very good as well, intact. And not only does this team have this incredible roster and this A+ roster. They have 2 picks in the first round, thanks to my Saints making dumb decisions. They have the number 10 pick and a number 30 pick in the first round. So my guess would be it depends on who they let go.
Right.
Yeah, whoever it is they let
Right.
go in free agency, they're going to try to replenish that with those
Yeah.
high draft picks.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's too hard to actually predict like which way they're going to go because we don't know on that list like
Yeah,
it's not that they have a pressing need where it's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, Washington needs to address the quarterback situation, Giants need to address wide receiver situation, Dallas, hey, maybe another wide receiver. They really need to maybe try to find a kicker, something. But for the Eagles, I mean, they don't have a pressing need. Their pressing need is who can they actually get back for next season, and then you have to work from there. So yeah, I think right now. Prediction would be like wait and see because we need to see what they do with that list.
yeah. It's definitely to be determined when it comes to the
Yeah.
draft for the Philadelphia Eagles for sure. So that was our NFC East review. And we'll see what happens after the draft. I'll definitely have Nikki on, later on this year as far as, because I'm, like I said, my New Year's resolution to have guests and I'm gonna have good guests. So why not have Nikki multiple times? Because I know she's gonna be a
Why
good guest.
not? Why not? Everybody wants Nikki multiple times.
So now let's talk about Love is Blind. Right.
Let's.
So the third season of Love is Blind, has been out for a while now. And I actually just saw that they put like a few new episodes up. I didn't see the new episodes where they like went back and
Oh, after the altar.
yeah, after the altar. I haven't seen those. Have you seen those?
Yes.
Okay, so you can fill me in on those and tell me what's going on there. But let's just start from the season itself. we had 5 couples. We had Alexa and Brennan, Colleen and Matt, Raven and SK, Nancy and Bartice, and Cole and Zenith. So out of those couples, did you have any couple that you kind of loved that you really was like, oh, I like this couple a lot?
Not really. No,
I'm there with you. Like I didn't have a couple that I was like, oh, I'm rooting for this couple. I really like the season before. I can't remember people's names now, but I had couples that I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, I'm rooting for this couple. I want them to make
yeah,
it. I really didn't fall in love with any of these couples. So,
no.
did you have any couples that you like? Oh, I can't stand this couple.
I actually cannot stand Colleen and Matt. Like, I truly, truly think that they hate each other because I think you can just tell, like, there's they have like a disdain for each other that couples who've been together for a really long time. Like, so my husband and I, March is 11 years together. I know you and your wife, been
Yeah,
together a similar amount of time, right? And they like hate on each other for things that has taken years. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, why are you eating that way? Like why are you doing, you work each other's nerves a little bit and it's
yeah,
stupid shit. But that doesn't happen like right away. That's
yeah,
over time and you live together and you go through shit together and sometimes you just irk each other, right? No,
yeah,
I don't know any married couple where it's like they never get on my nerves. Like that's just not realistic, right?
yeah,
Especially if we've been together over a decade. So for me, they're at a place where I'm like, oh God, like she's doing the eye roll, like she's annoyed with him already. Like I just think that they don't like each other. I think he's controlling. I think she she thinks like she can't get better. I don't know, but I can't stand them. I really hated watching them, but I couldn't help but watch them because I just am like, this guy's a tool. Like I don't know.
yeah. Now I'm with you, and I understand that he went through a very painful process in his previous marriage where he was cheated
Yeah,
on, not only cheated on, but she got pregnant by the guy that she cheated on him with.
yeah,
So it's like, dang, if you're gonna cheat, at least use protection. Like that's
yeah, yeah,
that's nuts. So I get from his standpoint why he has a hard time trusting people, but he also can't let that interfere with his now current relationship.
yeah,
And you saw that, right? They go out, they have a good time, and she doesn't come back. And she's having the girls' night out, and he's going nuts. And Bartice, of all people, has to calm him down. Like,
yeah.
yo,
Oh yeah,
like, yo, chill out. What do you? I would love
yeah,
to be in your position where you guys know that you guys are for each other. So I think that his insecurities from his previous relationship definitely bled into this one in a very
yeah,
bad way. Now, when it came to the whole situation where they finally meet each other in person and Cole goes up to her and says, you look really good, and you was one of the people that I would have picked, and especially in real life if I ran into you out of holler at you at a bar. Do you think he had a right to be so upset about that situation?
Matt.
Yeah.
No, and so here's my thing, and I don't even with Zay, like she was like, well, you guys had this whole conversation, and here's my thing, okay? You're in these pods, right? That was the first time people are seeing who they were talking to, right? And they're like, or was that the second time? And I forget. But my point to this really is like, I probably would need to process that a little bit. I think like don't hold that against me, especially if I had a connection with somebody in this pod. Like, yes, I agreed to move forward with somebody else, but I'm finally seeing and putting a face to the name of who this person is. I just think there's going to be so many like feelings there and probably a lot of mixed things going on that yeah, you might say something. And I just think that that's a little unrealistic to think that something might not be said at some point. So I don't get why you would be so upset. If the tables were turned, like, would you want to hear that? No, but would I understand it? Yes.
Yeah, I get it from that standpoint, right? Because they're all dating everybody. So
Yeah.
you're going to find these deep bonds with other people.
Yeah.
And him and Colleen, the reason that Cole and Colleen didn't get together is because Cole was like, well, there's not a deep connection there.
Right.
And even at the reunion, she was like, she said something snappy. She was like, and I'm not shallow, which
Yeah. Oh
like,
yeah.
you admitted you were shallow. Like one of the
Yeah.
reasons, like
She,
not because it wasn't just Cole. Bartice also was like, yeah, you're kind of shallow. Like so,
yeah.
it wasn't just Cole
Yeah.
that said that. And we'll get to Cole. I feel like Cole got kind of a raw deal there,
Oh,
but
he did.
so with Matt like I said, the past that he's been through, okay, I get that. But he was so angry. And for me, I was like, okay, I can get being annoyed, right? You're like, didn't like the fact that he came over to you and told you that, and that you said, oh, you find him attractive too. It's not like they took it to the next level. It's not like she was like, well, I wish I'd have picked you. That's different. And
Yeah.
like they were just like, oh, okay, you're cute,
And
cool.
who's surprised by that? Like they
Yeah,
look like they would go for each other,
yeah,
right? Like, I mean, they just kind of do. And
yeah,
his thing with like he really pissed me off because he was like, well, you're my wife, you're married to me, you're my like, no, first of all, nobody owns anybody here. Like,
yeah,
no, no, no. Of course, there's like a mutual respect, but also like they they're very new in their relationship as well. So it's just I don't know. I just don't like his personality. And I think that when you're going through something like this and you've got cameras in your face and you're trying to process so many things, that maybe just give each other a little bit of grace. I can't you can't promise that everything that comes out of your mouth is going to be appropriate.
yeah, for sure. So I think that once Cole came over and said that, she could have, because we saw it also a similar situation. I guess we could transfer over to Nancy and Bartice, right? So
Yeah.
once Bartice saw Raven, he was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh God, he was
Yeah,
he was done. That was it.
yeah. He was like, that was different. I feel like that was different compared
Yeah.
to what Colleen and Matt went through because Bartice and Raven, Raven literally started doing jumping jacks as Bartice was pouring his heart out in the pie. So once he saw her, he should have been like, okay, she's attractive. Like she's a very attractive woman, right? She's somebody who
Yeah.
like any guy pretty much would say she's attractive.
Yeah.
And once he saw her, it's like, okay, she's attractive, but obviously she wasn't into me. Like once you start doing jumping jacks, as I'm telling you a deep story, I'm done with you. Like it's not gonna
Yeah.
like no
Yeah.
matter how it could be Holly Berry. I still would be like, dang, she looks good, but she sucks. Like
Yeah.
she's a jerk. So I wouldn't be into her because of that. So I felt like Nancy had way more right to be upset with Bartice than Matt did with Colleen because Bartice not only did he was like just gawking over her, but when they went to bed that night, he was like, "Oh, she looked so good. It was
Right.
between you and like he just kept going in about it. And it's like, yo, like there's a level of honesty that we want, but also there's tact, right? Like
Yes.
you can say, yeah, Raven, she looks very good, but obviously, and the thing is, I didn't get Nancy's beautiful. That's what I didn't
Yeah.
like.
She
Nancy,
is.
yes, Nancy's beautiful. So it's like come on, man. Like you have someone there who's beautiful, who's into you. Like
Yeah.
Raven's beautiful, but she's not into you at all. So why
Yeah.
not go with the beautiful girl who's into you, who loves you, who's trying her hardest to be with you? But you're still stuck on her just because she looks good, because she looks
Hmm.
like obviously she's very into fitness and all that stuff. But come
Yeah.
on, man. Bartice probably was the guy who I hated the most on the show.
Yeah, he's my second hated.
Okay.
I just, for me, Matt, like, because I just don't like this whole controlling thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
just my thing. I don't like that. I never could never be with somebody like that. So, but Bartiz is definitely my least second least favorite. Like you said, there's a way to say things to people, right? And if you want to be honest, it's always appreciated, but it's like your delivery, like anything in life, right? It's
Yeah.
how you deliver certain things. It's not even what you say half the time, it's how you say
Yeah.
it to the person you're communicating with. And I think, he's just trying, for me, it got bothered because he's like, well, I'm just being brutally honest. Well, you're being an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
let's not cover up the assholeness by just saying you're being brutally honest. So I didn't like that. I get like he was totally like, oh my God, like she's the hottest thing in the world. But like clearly, yeah, she wasn't feeling you. She's doing
Yeah.
Pilates and tricep dips and you're talking in the pool and she's just even like, like she's glazed over.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't care. Yeah, she's a beautiful woman. Of course she is. I think we all can agree on that. But I think he kind of took it a little too far.
Yeah.
Um, and poor Nancy, I so bad wanted her to just stand up and be like, all right, then have her. Peace. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I just wanted that from her. I know you didn't watch After the Altar, but after the season, and then they're like, should we be friends? And they're trying to be friends. And she finally gets to a point where she's like, no, I just don't want to be your friend anymore. And I was like, well, thank God, because what is the point of it? Right? I don't understand these people who are like, oh, I'm friends with my exes. Why? What's the point? Like what is the point of that? I don't know.
Yeah.
whatever. Me, I'm just cold hearted. When I'm done with you, I'm done. That's it.
No, I feel that. And some people, like if they have a long relationship and it ended like on cool basis, they can still be cool. Like, but it's not like I hang out with this person all the time, cool. It's
Yeah.
we have some mutual friends in common and we can still be cordial if there's a get together of all the friends.
Yeah, we could be in the same room together and yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
different than, oh, we want to hang out all the time as best friends. Like, nah, that's that I don't get that either. So I'm with you on that for sure. And with Nancy, oh my God, the funniest dude on the show was Andrew. The
Oh, tantric sex guy. Yeah. What the hell was that?
and the thing that got me is when he started that whole spill about all that, she didn't even ask about any of that. Like it was a
Yeah.
simple question, and he just went into this whole thing and like trying to talk like he's so deep and knows
Yeah.
so much. And it was like, what?
And
Like,
the
what
eye
is that?
drops, right? You had the
Yeah.
eye drops going. Yeah. Like, come on, what a douche. Like, what? Poor Nancy. We need to get Nancy like her own show or something because she's great.
Yeah, I would love to see Nancy in a type of like bachelorette type of situation.
Yes.
Because, like I
Yes.
said, I believe Nancy is also very beautiful, and Deuce would
Yes.
go crazy to try to get with Nancy. And she seems like a super cool person, too. So I
Yeah.
think that that would be dope. And did you find anything when they had the whole abortion conversation? Did you like find anything wrong with that conversation?
Um, so yeah, so for me, I think like, you don't really know this person, right? And you have this conversation, which is tough and hard and something that comes up probably for every couple, or even if you're dating, right? It's important to know, do I align with this person? I'm not going to say that every single couple has every single belief in common. That's
Yeah.
probably not really realistic. And that's okay. But I think when you're having these conversations, you both have to be open minded to what the other person might say. And I don't think Bartiz was. And then the reaction, it was like that conversation threw everything off. The family was on his side.
Yeah.
I'm also not a fan of like yanking your family into a lot of like your marriage
Yeah.
stuff because they're going to take your side and it's not always an
Yeah.
objective thing. And maybe I'm being an asshole, you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of that, but I just think that if you're going to have a serious conversation when it comes down to beliefs, I just think that you have to both be open-minded because you don't know what the other person's going to say.
Yeah. No, you definitely have to be open minded. I thought some people came down a little too hard on Bartiz because he just was talking from a perspective of wanting his kid to still want to be able to take care of his kid, which I totally
Yeah.
get. And but always also it's the woman's right to do what she wants to do in that situation. But as the guy, you also have rights. You also have a right to say like what you want in that situation. So it's a tough discussion to have, but it was also real to see them have that. But also feel like a lot of discussions they should have in a pod before they propose to each other, they were having
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, I know. Like, why wasn't that's a major thing? So,
Yeah,
why not bring that up? Like, as you're talking about the whole "do you want kids" thing, because that's a
yeah.
major thing as well. Like, maybe you delve into that. Maybe they did and we didn't see it, and they told them to redo it. I don't know, but I think that that was a very real moment, and I think it's something that a lot of couples go through.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw that in season two where one couple, the woman didn't want kids, but the guy did want kids. It's
Yeah,
like you got to talk about that before you say I want to get married. Like you got to be on the same page with that, or at least be somewhere
have to.
like if one person wants a big family, one person wants a small family, get meet in the middle somewhere, do something, have that conversation. But it can't just be all or nothing on both sides. Like that's nuts.
No.
So I'm with you on that one. So let's talk about Raven and SK real quick. So my wife, for the longest time during the year, she's like, I don't know if Raven really likes this guy.
That's how I felt.
Okay, that's how you felt this because I Raven at times felt like it was phony at times.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like the fact that I know other people also their parents didn't come, but the fact that it was just her friends and it seemed very like just very Instagram modelish throughout the time that she was there. And SK, he also like did he think it was gonna work with him like or like you're starting out the relationship saying we're gonna be married but we're gonna be in different places like
yeah.
that whole thing seemed weird to me. Do you think they were real or do you think it was for just TV?
No, I could not buy into this couple at all whatsoever. Like I didn't see like any natural chemistry there. It just felt like so forced and
Yeah.
fake. And like, I just didn't see it. And I watching it and I'm like, I don't see what everybody else is seeing. Like, I just, I don't know. I didn't buy into it. They were probably like one of my least favorite to watch. Now, I think Raven's probably hard to read.
Yeah.
She's a little bit closed off, and I get that, but I wasn't into them. It just felt so fake to me. Like, I just didn't see any chemistry or like love. And then, yeah, like how you be like, well, I'm going to grad school for 2 years, and then he reproposes to her, and then we watch after the altar, he ends up cheating on her. I listen,
Oh wow, he ended up cheating on her.
yeah.
Oh,
So
that's the thing. You
yeah,
don't worry about spoiling anything. So if you have something to add from after the altar,
yeah,
please go ahead and say it. Yes.
yeah. So no, he did repropose to her, and this big elaborate, went to a rooftop dinner or whatever, and proposes. She says yes. And then I don't know, we get this clip of her. It literally ends on her crying into the camera that, he cheated on her. And, but I'm not excusing it. But if you are have a long distance relationship, I imagine that that's tough. And
Yeah.
he did say he was raised, I think his dad had multiple wives. So I think like if
He
you're in
did.
that
He did say that.
environment,
Yeah.
you're away from her. But again, I'm not excusing it, but if I was in a long distance relationship, I might almost expect that to eventually happen. I don't know.
No, it's
I'm
tough.
weird though. I
Yeah, no, me and my wife, we went through a period where it was long distance. When I was in the Navy, I was on deployment. So
right.
we had to go through that period for 8.5 months. And we made it through that period, without anything happening. But it's definitely tough for
Yeah,
sure. And you have to
sure.
be in constant communication. And it was tough because I was halfway across the world. So our
Yeah,
time difference and everything else was something that made it tough. But that's how I knew like we were strong, we were gonna make it because we made it through that period. And but it's different when you're not on deployment, right? And
right.
you're just somewhere and you have all this
At
freedom.
school. Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
doing whatever. Yeah,
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 so it's very different. And like I said, Raven seemed like because she's so closed off, and she also was like, well, we're not going to do anything until we get married. So I don't know if that
right,
continued afterwards. So if she wasn't giving
right.
anything up, I'm not condoning it, but I understand it if she's not getting everything up and he's got somebody at school feeling him, and I can see how that can happen. So with Raven, she's very beautiful, but I didn't get anything from her as far as who she really is. Just I know
Yeah,
she's into exercising. I know that she wasn't feeling Bartiz.
yeah.
Like
No,
if there
no,
was,
not at
if
all.
she expressed that in a very rude way, like that was my turn off for me. Like you really gonna start doing jumping jacks? Like this man can't hear what you. Obviously, the sound is very good for you guys to be able to talk through the wall, so he's gonna be able to hear you doing jumping jacks. So
And
that
see you because you can see the shadow, correct? Like we
yeah,
see their shadows. Like she's moving, she got the armband, like she doing everything. Like, yeah, I remember her saying that. Well, we're not doing anything till we're married. And it's like
yeah, yeah. I feel like that's just a very, and I'm not trying to like belittle anybody's beliefs, but I feel like that's a very old school rule that doesn't apply to 2023. Like if you out here really trying to make a man hold out for a year
two
plus,
years, two
yeah.
years.
So not because you want to hold out to a marriage, that's tough. Like I'm not saying that me and my wife wouldn't have made it, but I don't know. But I don't know if we would have if that was the rule that she had in place to hold on until marriage. That's tough.
Yeah,
So but again, everybody each their own, but I don't think I could do it. And obviously SK could not have done it either.
no.
Let's talk about Alexa and Brennan real quick. They were very quickly, they like fell in love, but there wasn't really much there as far as a storyline.
Yeah.
With them, did you see anything that was like right away? You're like, oh, this couple's gonna make it. Like, was there anything there that you found interesting?
I think you could clearly like see their bond, right? They
Yeah.
do really seem they're both a little weird to me, and I think the weird kind of like
Yeah.
connected for them. First of all, her stepmom is like her age, which is
Yeah,
just
that was nuts.
I literally was like, who is this? Who's her dad? What does he own? His house is amazing. Like
Yeah.
what is this family? Like, so I did a deep, well, not deep dive. Like maybe I scrolled past the third headline on Google. No, so I really like if I had to say like what couple did I Google it was them because I just found like they're just so weird. Like she's a little odd and like he's odd and he's messy gossip. They like to gossip and they think they know everybody's relationship and So I think the weirdness pulled them together. So I found her family and those dynamics very interesting because she's
Yeah.
Jewish and he's not, and he was trying to learn. And I feel like the dad was just kind of always like side eyeing him and just like calling him names. And I'm like,
Because
what?
he wasn't rich. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and she's coming from a very well off family.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she's got a certain level of expectation. And,
Yeah.
so I think their bond was there. But I don't like when they automatically took Zay's side. And it was like,
Yes.
we didn't even hear, you're not hearing anything that Cole said. You're only listening to her. And then we see the cutie video come out, and it's like, wow, what a bitch.
Yes, yes. So this brings me to what I've been wanting to talk about forever. Free my man Cole. Free
Yes.
my man Cole.
Thank you.
So that was one thing that kind of turned me off on Brennan. So during the reunion, they were talking about the bachelor party, and they
Uh-huh.
were saying that Cole came home drunk or he kissed some girl that night, and the whole time they were with each other. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if Cole was drunk and misremembered and said something to Zay or whatever happened. But when Cole asked Brennan, he was like, "Brennan, yo, you orchestrated everything. You organized all this. Can you tell her like this is what we did?" He's like, "Nah, nah." So obviously he does whatever Alexis says. That's what I got from
Yes.
whatever Alexis
Yes.
says, because Alexis is very strong. She's the friend that once you mess with her friend, she's against you, right? We all
That's
know
it.
a person like that that's like, once you mess with their friend, you're going to them, right? And that's what Cole was to her. But the thing is, she was just believing everything that Zay was saying and never got Cole's side of the story. So I can respect the strong friend that's like got your friends back, because we all need a friend like that. Because
Yeah.
that's also gonna be honest with you in situations, stuff like that. But it seems like Alexis was never honest with Zay. She never was like, Zay, maybe you're being a little too sensitive, or Zay, you're doing this. Like it was just like, oh, Cole did this. Well, done with him. He's an asshole. He's a horrible person.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Cole is definitely not perfect. Not by any means.
No.
Like the whole when he asked her if she was bipolar, that was out of line, right?
Yeah.
Now, I can see why you would think that, but you can't say that. I can see why, like, because she definitely has some mood swings. So I can see in your mind thinking, like, dang, she might be a little crazy. I can see you thinking that, but
Yeah.
you definitely can't ask her that. Like, that was out of
No.
line. That was wrong. But literally everything else she complained about, I was on Cole's side.
Mhm.
Literally everything else. And me and my wife had a debate because she went the night of the day of the wedding, and she went off and told him how he was all this stuff, and she was like, "You told me about my weight," and I was like, if he was really saying bad stuff about her weight, they would have showed it on the show,
Mhm.
I believe,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's something. Because then you have a reason to hate this guy,
Then
and
you have your villain too, right? I mean,
yeah,
there you go. Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, they would have showed it if he was saying bad stuff about her weight. And like you said, they showed a cutie scene, which she described as him belittling her and trying to make it like, and he literally was,
Destroying her self-esteem over oranges. Oh, what the hell? I'm
and
watching it and I'm like, really?
he was surprised when he found out that she didn't eat.
Yes.
He was like, why didn't you eat?
Yeah.
And because he was like, oh, you're gonna eat those? And like basically it's just messing with her about, can I get one? And she's,
Yeah.
is it okay if I have this? It's just one serving. And he's like, fine. I just was telling you because we're about to eat. And I didn't want you to fill up your stomach because we're about to go
Yeah.
eat. And then she said, oh, I haven't eaten anything. He's like, why didn't you eat? So he's literally doing the opposite
Uh-huh.
of what she said.
I know.
But the whole time, everybody's ganging up on him.
Mhm.
And I was like, free my man Cole. I feel like they gaslit him.
Yeah.
Like they made him feel like the worst person in the world. And the whole time it's Zay, who the insecurity
Oh,
level of
oh my
Zay.
God. Exhausting.
Yes, yes, exhausting.
I'm
Like,
sure even to be her friend is exhausting.
yes. And the thing is, Zay is beautiful.
Yes.
She's very pretty, and she has no reason to be insecure. Now, I don't know what happened in her childhood, the trauma she might have had then. I know in the previous season there were a few of the women who were bigger and they were younger, and of course they probably got teased because of that, which brought insecurities into their adulthood. Which, like, I get that. With Zay, I don't know, but at this point, you've been looking like this this beautiful woman that we see now for a while. And he's been telling you how beautiful you are.
Yeah.
And when she asked him, "Oh, what would you rank me 1 to 10?" First of all, it's a trap, right? There's no answer you can say that's correct.
Don't do it.
If you say 10, she goes like, "Oh, you're only saying that because I asked you." So he said 9. He thought, okay, it's not 10, so she won't be able to say I'm lying. 9,
Yeah.
I'm saying that you're beautiful, but I'm not exaggerating. And then she said, "Oh, you think Colleen's a 10?" Like, like
I know. God, she's just setting traps. She's one of those women, just
yeah,
trap after trap after trap. Yeah.
yes. And the thing is, even in the reunion, Cole had a chance to shit on her when they were showing her how she was nagging him and how
Yeah.
she was being passive aggressive. He could have easily been like, "You guys see what I was dealing with?" But he was like, "No, it wasn't that bad. They just kind of put those points out there for the video, for camera. It wasn't that bad. It was more funny than bad." So he took the high road. And then they could, like Alexis, Nancy, all of them just decided to just gang up on him. And am I wrong? Did Cole really like deserve all of this? Was he really this bad of a person?
No, I don't think he was this bad of a person. I think that, like you said, Zay is incredibly insecure. And I think that whatever comment, like it could have come from anybody and she would have taken it that way. I
Yeah.
think that's what it was. It could have been any man. She could have picked anyone from the pods. And if they had made that joke, like, what are you going to eat all that before dinner? Clearly he was joking about it.
Yeah.
It's two little oranges, first of all. And second of all, it was just like, like, hey, don't forget, we have dinner. I mean, I'll do it to my husband. I'm like, oh, we have dinner at like 7 or something. And like, he doesn't care. He's like, all right, well, I'm still eating a snack. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't think Cole was the monster that she like made him out to be. And to do what she did on the altar there and completely blindside him and say you single-handedly destroyed my self-esteem. No, other things have happened for you to get to that point. It wasn't just him that did that. So I think that she needs to work on some things, right? And he by no means was like fat shaming her. If anything, we kept hearing him say and try to reassure her, "You're beautiful, you're hot, I'm really into you."
Yeah.
And she wasn't receiving that. I think she clearly was just wanting to hear what she wanted to hear,
Yeah.
right? And she wanted to make him. She's pissed about the Colleen thing from the start, and that was it.
Yeah, it definitely went downhill from there. And the thing is, he said like Colleen would be the one that I would go at, if I was in a bar or something like that. But
Yeah,
obviously I chose you. And he's
yeah,
because he was like, "Clearly I knew you weren't some blonde white chick. Your name's Zenip." Like
yes,
so,
yes,
so he's like, "Clearly you're not, I know that you're not
yeah.
gonna be what I would normally go after." So it was, yeah, I feel like Cole really got the short end of the stick there. So was there anything on the after the Ultra special with those two?
They talked. They were at Alexa's birthday party, and Cole comes up to her and says, "Can we talk?" And then they try to come to like some understanding because they didn't talk in a year. And he was like, "I thought the expectation was like, I thought you were going to say no, but the expectation was that we were going to continue to date. And then you just never talked to me." And she just pushed everything back on him. And he said, "You know what? I could start a fight right now or something like that, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to walk away from this because listen, you don't fight with crazy. If somebody's got something in their mind,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying she's crazy, but if somebody is just hell bent on like whatever you say, this is how they're going to perceive it. It's like arguing with a drunk person. Just you know
Yeah.
what? Just walk away and move on. So they talked, and nothing really got resolved.
Yeah.
And I hope that she learns not to take everything. I don't even know how she was twisting. Like he's like, "Oh, you're so hot," and she's just like, "Well, but Colleen, like, what does that have to do with anything?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was crazy. There was one part
yes,
where they were in the hotel room and she's like, "I look totally different on my makeup." And he told a joke based off of that, her statement. He's like, "Oh my
yeah,
God, you look so different." Like just clearly it was a good
yeah.
joke off of what she said. And she took that personally. And
She took that personally. She
yeah,
took
he's like, "Oh,
everything personally because it's insecurity, right? Like I
yeah,
can relate to that. It was like first time you're like, "Oh my God, they're gonna see me without makeup on," but I mean, like
yeah."
just
Mhm.
kind of he was just playing on that, and I'm pretty sure my husband made the same joke too. Like one, actually, I think he will now. I think the first time he was like, "Oh, you like look exactly the same," kind of. I was like, "Okay, well, that's good." But maybe part of what Cole's fault was like not quite understanding like what
Level of
type of
insecurity
humor
she
he
had.
could use and like what she, yeah, and you're not going to know that just by knowing each other for 3 weeks, you know what I mean? So but then on the same point, it's like, well, you don't not want to be yourself either, so
Yeah.
you just don't want to do that. But I think it was like his delivery. She didn't like the sense of humor. She took everything personally, and she was passive aggressive, which
And
I hate.
yes, the passive aggressive nagging, like,
Oh,
and understand like his house was dirty and all that stuff, but like he explained in the reunion, he was like, it was like
yeah,
last minute, I left, and
yeah,
like and the power turned out like it was horrible. So he knew going in what it was going to be, but then after that, it was like, well, you want to pick that up? Like it
yeah.
was
You want to
like,
put this in the basket? You want to do that? You want to like, bitch, shut the fuck up! Like, my God.
yeah,
Oh,
it was absolutely nuts, man, absolutely crazy. I think I've asked you this before, but would you ever do a reality show?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I would do like Real Housewives. Yeah.
Real
Yeah, I
Housewives?
would
Okay.
never, yeah, I would never do like I watched Married at First Sight. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna like get married, but like
Yeah,
I would never do any of these like sight unseen type
yeah,
of
yeah.
things.
Even if I was single, it's hard to imagine me thinking this is the only way. You know what I mean? Like it's hard
Yeah,
to, but I've been in the same relationship now, just like you, for 10, 11 years. It's like
yeah,
it's hard to get myself to that standpoint of thinking, if I'm single now at 33, do I say, oh, let me go take a chance on this show? Maybe it's different if you're that age, but that's the thing. A lot of the men and women on these shows are younger. So it's,
yeah,
it's like how you get to this point of like, I need to find somebody now when you're
yeah.
23. Like, stop it. Go to the club, get on Tinder.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Do
like,
all that. Like I got married later in life.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was yeah, there's a on Married at First Sight, there's a 25-year-old on there. And I'm like, what do? You don't need to be married at 20. I mean, you do you, whatever. But
Yeah.
no, so I wouldn't do any like sight unseen, like dating thing. I'm not doing any like survivor type, like put me in the wilderness type shit because we know I won't survive. But something like Bravo, like Real Housewives, or like they do Summer House or like
Yeah.
Jersey Shore. Like, yeah, I do that.
Okay. I can see you being a really good like character on Housewives for sure. What would do
Yes.
you have a tagline in mind when they introduce you? What do you think you have a good tagline?
No, I have to work on that. I'm not going to submit it to Andy Cohen. I feel like you'd have to play something on football, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to work on that.
Yeah, we come with one together. We come one together for sure. But I think you would be dope on there. Like, it's hard for me to picture myself doing any type of reality show because I'm more of a private person. So it's hard,
Yeah.
yeah, to picture myself doing that. I definitely want to do like a game show though. Like, I would love to go on like Family Feud.
Oh, I could see that for you. That
Yeah,
tracks. Yeah, for sure.
something like that.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers, when he gets out of the darkness, maybe he'll host Jeopardy and you can be on it.
Jeopardy, that's a different type of level of knowledge. Like I'm
Yeah.
good with like useless knowledge, but most of mine is just movie quotes in sports. So when they
Yeah.
start asking stuff about, oh, who was the 16th president of Israel? I'm like, I have no idea
That's funny.
what any of that stuff is. But like a sports Jeopardy, I definitely picture myself doing that, or like a funny athletic show like Wipeout. Like I think I would like
Yeah.
I could picture myself doing something
I
like
can see
that.
you doing that. Yeah.
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 So that's the type of shows I would be in. But this was excellent, man. I love having you on the show. This was
Thank
really
you.
dope. Please let the people know because you have so many shows and so much going on. Please let the people know where they can find you on social media and where they can find your work.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on all social media at NikkiNick9384, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff. Part of, New York Giants Rush. So make sure you follow us on Twitter there as well. Monday nights is the Giants guys. Wednesday nights is Rush Hour. Wednesday night's also 3rd and 3. So we're gonna figure this out, everybody. I promise you we will figure this out. And then just hopping on various shows here and there. But a lot of cool guests coming up for Rush Hour. We're gonna do like a golf special because I got invited
Ooh.
to women in golf cocktail party on Thursday. So we're gonna
Oh,
do that
that
to
sounds
support
dope.
women. Yeah, support women in golf. We're gonna do like a little baseball special. So we're gonna go everywhere and then definitely have you on because we're gonna do Pop Madness. We have college basketball, March Madness coming up. So who better to go to than
Hey,
Portuguese
when you,
League?
especially
So
when you do your NBA special, you got to get me on for that.
of
Talk some
course.
basketball for sure.
We gotta
So
talk that. Yeah, so we got, we got all things. We got NFL off season, so much to talk about. I know a lot of some of these content creators are like, well, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many things you can talk about. Like, there's
yeah,
so many different people you can invite on your show. So that's the exciting part.
for sure. I'm always looking for good guests, so I'm definitely going to be hitting you up, a few times throughout the off season to get you on for
Yes,
sure.
of
Like
course.
you mentioned, 3rd and 3 podcast every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Me, you, Jason Fearman, two of the best sports minds that I know that I've learned a lot from in the time that we worked together, and look forward to plenty of years to come of the 3rd and 3 podcast for
Yeah.
sure. My podcast, The Real Deal with Damian Adams. If you enjoyed this episode, which I know you did if you listened, please share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with the people that you don't like, share it with everybody out there so that they can get this podcast to the highest level of podcastivity. I would truly, truly appreciate it. All right. Follow me at The Real Deal WDA. I'm always dropping videos. It could be boxing, football, basketball, anything. And I am writing an article today for 3rd and 3podcast.com. It's been a while since we've been on there, right? So
Oh,
yes, I'm
wow.
gonna get back to doing that. So look out for articles on 3rd and 3podcast.com. All right. And until next time, go real or go home.